No matter what you're doing right now, maybe it's making dinner, maybe you're on your way home from work, wherever you are, there's a good chance you're finding things harder than they've been in a long time. Today, we found out just how hard. It's an all too familiar tale.
I think we're all getting a bit tight in the old age.
Having two young children, it's sort of very hard to afford a lot of things these days.
Aussies across the country doing it tough.
We used to go out fortnightly, but not anymore.
I've noticed that groceries have gone up about a third.
Though new data from the Commonwealth Bank reveals some of us are doing it tougher than others.
Younger Australians are cutting back on necessities, but also the things they want. Whereas when we look at the older generations, they are able to spend more freely.
The report involving 7 million Aussies finding 25 to 29-year-olds reduced spending by 3.5% in the first 3 months of 2024. The only age group to cut back on both non-essential and essential spending like grocery bills, utilities and health insurance.
Last year rent went up like 25%, so we really felt that.
While those over 65 increased their spending by more than 4%, over 70s increased their spending by more than 5%, and over 75s by almost 7%.
When we look at older Australians, it's much more likely that they do own their home outright, and that does allow them more flexibility in their spending.
But older Aussies aren't all living large. Many forced to spend more on essentials like medical and pharmaceutical expenses, as well as things like dining out and travel.
We haven't stopped spending on the things that we enjoy, going out to dinner, travel.
The RBA's inflation fix, higher interest rates, no deterrent for senior spenders who paid off their mortgage years ago.
Using interest rates is the one and only tool that the RBA has. So if you've got a lower income, you've got a bigger mortgage, you're going to be doing it a lot tougher than somebody who's sitting on their retirement savings actually getting more interest from those higher rates.
The cost of living crisis now becoming an issue of intergenerational equity.
It's almost a two-speed economy with young people being impacted by increasing cost of living, whereas older people have paid off the mortgage and hence they're feeling more comfortable to spend their money.
Even with older Australians spending the kids' inheritance now, we're still seeing overall spending going backwards. So this is not the cause of inflation. Please don't blame the boomers.
We're live from the traditional lands of the Kulin Nation. Discussing this with us tonight and a whole lot more is Miff Warhurst, and of course a special weeknight edition of Michael Hing. Welcome to the show. Hello. Good to have you here. Miff, we'd like to welcome you with good news, but bad luck. You got that.
I got that to start with, you know, and look, I know that my mum says golf is expensive and those half vests that they wear, they're very pricey. But I do think all this talk that pits generations against one another is actually quite damaging at the moment. We're at a point in our culture where I think we need to unite a lot more than we do, and it seems to sort of push us apart. So, and I think, you know, there's lots of older generations who are struggling and lots of younger folk who are too. It's all over the place at the moment, I feel.
It's a tricky balance to strike though, right? Because there's part of me that sees older generations and it's like, of course, they've earned that flexibility. They've earned the right to do that and spend their money however they want to. But then I also grew up as someone who never thought that they would ever actually own property, or that would be on the horizon for me.
Well, that dream is gone, hasn't it, for most young people?
Well, except when older people die off. And there's a lot of commentary about how Gen Z, I think it is going to be the wealthiest generation ever because they're going to inherit a whole lot of stuff. It's just that that's all delayed.
So can we turn on them now? Is that okay?
Yeah, I like this. Let's all live in peace, but I want to know who to turn on. That's very good of you, Miff. Yeah.
That's sort of the rhetoric, right? It's that we always need someone to blame.
Yes, and the thing to be aware of is also be careful, because a lot of the older generation have lived through things like recessions and stuff, and they got hit pretty hard at various times in their life. What we're trying to do now is avoid the next recession.